Hey everybody, and welcome to the very first live stream that we've ever done here at Cycle News. Now, obviously, it's a pretty weird time in the world. We would all like to be out riding motorcycles, and some people racing motorcycles, but unfortunately, that's not happening at the moment. So I hope everyone out there is staying safe and looking after each other. But anyway, the reason we're doing this is because we thought we would nab America's latest Moto2 and MotoGP racing star. You know, it's been a while since we've had somebody up towards the pointy end of Grand Prix racing. And he's a really cool guy too. You know, 22-year-old Californian, Joe Roberts. So I'll get him up here. Yeah, Joe.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Not too bad. Just staying sane.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll jump right into it, man. Like, it must be a pretty strange time for you because you have basically set the Grand Prix paddock alight with an incredible turnaround performance, really. And then you've had to put the brakes on. That's got to be pretty hard.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really a weird time for sure. I was expecting to be doing back-to-back races and getting on with it and having a really good start to the year. I mean, we already had a great one, but yeah, I don't know. It's a funny time for sure. But it's the same thing for everybody, right? So we all got to get through it, and we'll in the end, I think we'll be fine, and we'll get back to it, and the speed will still be there.
Yeah. That was, I mean, watching from the outside perspective, I mean, like, I've got your stats here. You know, last year you scored 4 points, and this year you scored 13 already. You know, so
doesn't make sense, does it?
huge turnaround. What was it that made you that lit the fuse under you? I mean, there's got to be a multiple bunch of things. What was the things that worked for you?
I mean, it is a lot of things, honestly. I think a lot's changed this year for sure. A lot has changed. I've got, you know, a really good, solid, like I've said in a lot of interviews, I have a lot of good, solid team around me now, and some obviously a great new bike as well, which has won the championship many times, won it last year as well. So I think that is something for me. I was always struggling with that, you know, feeling I didn't have the bike exactly where I wanted it. So now when I'm on the bike, I actually feel like I can ride like myself again, and do the things that I want to do on a bike. And yeah, it's funny. I think even in Jerez, we had a really good start in Jerez, but it wasn't like I lit up the whole test. You know, it was just kind of getting things started. And once we got to Qatar, I kind of knew that we could do something really, really great, you know, and the feeling I had on the bike turning in the corners and stuff was pretty sick. It was turning like how I wanted it to, and I've always wanted a bike to turn. So, and I think once you have that aspect, but then you also have a whole team around you that's just giving you the great feelings. And, you know, I have my new crew chief this year. I don't know. I just feel really lucky to have all those guys. Honestly, it's just really such a cool bunch of people, and I think the positivity that's going around in the team is just, it's being complemented by the results too. You know, so
yeah.
I think it's just like lifting all of us onto a whole new level. I think it's not even just me that's on a new level as far as like confidence and things. It's the whole team as a whole. We're just yeah. So I think it's mainly a lot of things to do with that, and obviously now I have John Hopkins around too, so that's been nice to have him there. And me and him are just like good friends as well, you know, as far as even if it's just like we're working together, we're still also just really good friends. So it's nice to have him around, and a familiar American face and an American voice, you know.
Yeah. How did John, was it John, Joe, you know, same thing. How did John's input sort of change your, I guess, approach to racing? Because you've always been fast. There's never been any doubt that you could do it. I mean, back in the days when you were in Moto America, you know, especially like the Superstock Championship and things like that, you're always very quick. But it seems like there's something that's been a bit of a mindset change in the way you approach the weekend with Hopkins.
Yeah, I think the fact is that I didn't know if I could do it anymore. Was one of the things. I think that I reached a point after 2 hard seasons that I was struggling with my confidence, and especially after last year, because I expected to be like, what I'm doing this year. So, and when we didn't achieve that, I think it created, some doubts for me. And I even said to John before the start of this year, I was like, man, what if I have another year like last year? I think the real highlight of what John has done for me is just what he said is just, there's no way in hell that's going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen. No, like it was always like a definite no to that. It's going to be a great year. So when there's no like slippage in the words of, well, maybe it could be if you don't do this right, it's just always, yes, it's going to be great. There's no bullshit in your head. It's just, you're always there. So, and yeah, even when we got to the test, I'd worked with John, obviously in the off season doing like supermoto and flat track and some training there and working on stuff, but we hadn't got to the real deal, which was the first test of the season in Jerez. And I remember me and him we met up in Barcelona. I was already there and he flew in from LA, and we flew together to Seville, and it was nice, just me and him just hanging out, and we had a really funny night in Jerez, in the town. He kept going on about this Mex, because we're both from LA or from California, and we're both obsessed with the Mexican food. And the one thing about living in Europe is there's no good Mexican food anywhere. So I'm like always on the search for good tacos or a burrito or something. And as soon as we got to Jerez, John said to me, he's like, man, there was this one place here that had this amazing Mexican food, like the best. It was so amazing. They made this homemade guac and everything. And so he's like, thought he'd found the place. So we get there, and man, that was disgusting. The food was like the chicken was like gray. The tortillas tasted moldy, and John like threw up walking outside. We just didn't even eat it. We just and left. We like took a bite and we were out of there. And he threw up on the street, and we were just dying laughing. And I think that set the tone for our relationship. Was just going to be like, it was fun from there on out. Just a really lighthearted thing. And I honestly need that. I think if I look back on all my years of racing, I think I've done my best when I've kept it the most fun and the most relaxed, and just, hey, I'm here to race a bike, and we're here to win and kick ass, but have fun doing it. So, and I think when you go to the world level, especially being the only American, it starts to get really serious quite quickly, and everyone around you expects. You're always looking to the next step, which is MotoGP or what's expected of me to get there. And I think you start to lose sight of what's the real important thing, which is just, I'm living the dream, traveling around the world. I'm with people that all love this too, which is something that I think people don't always pay attention to, is the fact that every single person in that paddock is there because they love the sport and have loved it since they were a kid. So we all have this common reality that we're all there for that. And it's kind of, once you start to understand that and embrace that fact, you start to lose the expectation and all of that and just have fun with it. And I think that was something that with John, it helped me to realize, and also my crew chief as well. I don't want to leave him out, because he also did a really good job with that, keeping it really fun and not letting my head get too big when I was, after the pole lap or things like that. It was always on a mutual level. So that's the nice thing about it, for sure.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just talking about this. I want to be racing right now. I wish I was racing. Wow.
Yeah, you got ants in your pants, dude. Far out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned your crew chief. So what has been the change there? I mean, is this a new crew chief from last year? Because it's the same team you're in last year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a new crew chief. A lot, like inside the team, it's changed a lot. We have a new chief data analyst as well. This guy Nicholas, who's a really super cool guy and also very knowledgeable. Worked on a lot of teams. Worked for Tech3 for a long time, and he kind of overlooks both riders as far as like, you know, on the data. And that's been quite nice because it kind of takes pressure off of both teams because they can kind of go to somebody to kind of help. And I think that's one thing that's been really nice. And then my crew chief, I changed from last year to this year. And I've said it before, but it's funny with him is the one thing I really liked about him. And one of the reasons I really wanted him on board was because statistically it given every rider he worked with their best season. And I thought, oh, well, there's obviously something he's doing right. If, you know, every rider who's come to him in, you know, all riders have all sorts of different mentalities and ways of working, but they all had their best seasons with him. So I thought, wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I should have him on board because you know, I need my best season. So, and another thing was he had given Chaz Davies and Sam Lowe's world championships in Supersport. They had won the world championship, so I thought that was pretty sweet. And you know, also he'd worked with English-speaking riders, which is something to consider as well. You got to have a good understanding, with the language, because I don't speak Italian. So,
how's your Spanish?
Yeah, it's getting better.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to say anything, man.
I won't, mate. It's all right. Don't worry. How, like, you've been in Europe now for a few years. Like, how was, I mean, that's actually, and this is your second time there as well. Like, you were there as a kid. And I say kid, you really were a kid. What were you, like 12, 11 or something when you first went over?
I was 13 when I first got accepted to the Rookies Cup,
right,
to do racing.
How has it been different the second time around? Because obviously, I mean, you're a grown man now. I mean, how has it been? Because I guess it's a case now of it's like sink or swim, really, when you get into the GP paddock, and especially when you get a half decent bike. Like, there's a lot of people that want that ride. So, how has it been in terms of living in Europe, dealing with that kind of pressure as well?
Yeah, I mean, this year I haven't had the chance to live in Europe really because obviously of everything that's been going on, but I would say there's positives, there's up and downs to it. You know, I think when the racing's down, the living situation can be quite down. I had this house right near the Barcelona track, and it was pretty secluded. I moved there because there's a guy I was working with that had a bunch of bikes you could rent from him, and it was kind of more cost efficient than buying all my own bikes and stuff. So, and there's a lot of tracks around there. A lot of riders live in Barcelona because there's a lot of tracks to ride at. So, but yeah, I found it quite difficult being there because I was living alone, and you start to feel like a little isolated sometimes. You know, especially when things aren't going great, you start to feel a bit lonely, and you're always FaceTiming home. So it's like I was living on the moon or something. You know, I was never like really embracing the culture or anything. So, but in the years towards the end of last year, I really started making a lot of friends, and I started doing trips around. And I did this trip to in the summer break last year. I did this trip from Barcelona. I drove all the way to San Sebastian, like Bilbao, and then I drove down to Galicia to where Edgar Pons lives. And we did this, like, it was like a van trip. So I slept in this van, and I love surfing too. So it was like I brought my surfboard, and we just surfed in Galicia, and then drove down to Portugal and surfed there. And honestly, that's probably my fondest memory about, you know, being out in Europe is that, because it was just so, you know, you travel around on airplanes and hotels, you get in the whole routine, and then to suddenly just do it in a van and just drive around and sleep in little campsites and stuff. I loved it. I really did. And that aspect is so cool. Portugal is a really nice place, but overall, I really like the whole, you know, everyone's such
Sorry, Joe. I just seem to have lost the audio there, mate. Oh, you done that? You there, Joe? I can't hear you, man.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. There he is.
I don't know what happened there, but yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. All right. Technology, man. It's all good. I'm not real great at this, so we'll improve. Everyone out there in CN land, we'll improve on this. Well, I've got you. Actually, we've got a couple of questions here. Campbell01 says, great result last time out, Joe. Any area with you or the bike you still feel needs improving, and are you able to still train on a bike at least with everything that's just going on now?
I haven't been able to train on a bike actually with everything that's been going on. I heard maybe there was a track open, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know what is acceptable right now. But yeah, as far as like what I could improve, I think I didn't win the race, right? I finished 4th, so there's obviously stuff to improve on. And I think if I look back on the race, I think the last 5 laps I could have taken more out of. I could have taken a little bit more advantage of it. Just because I didn't expect the guys to take that next step again. But yeah, I think that's all part of learning. I hadn't run up in the front of a Moto2 race ever. So yeah, so I think for me, and if once we get racing again, I'll put more attention on those last 5 laps for sure.
Yeah, so they really did just sort of kick it up a notch, because I watched some of it back earlier in the week just preparing for this, and yeah, you could see them just in that last little bit. They just began to stretch it, but you hung in there. I mean, it wasn't like they dropped you or anything. It just seems like it's maybe that just tiny last little tenth or so.
Yeah, I had my attention on the front tire. Basically, because we'd gone with we were like one of 3 riders that went with the harder front tire, and I basically on the left side it was getting cold, and I was starting to lose the front, so I was a little nervous about where the condition was. But on the last lap, I made a big push to get the podium, and basically figured out that I had to just change the line in the left-hand corners a bit, and the right-hand corners I could just do exactly the same because it had plenty of heat. And I think I set my personal best time on the last lap or something, which is actually quite frustrating. It's frustrating to see that as a rider. You're like, well, damn it, I could have done that the whole race. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, you got some. I mean, with that photo that's on the screen now, you got some names behind you. You got Bastianini. There's Jorge Navarro, Remy Gardner, Jorge Martin. You're up with the big boys in that one.
Yeah, no, that's the sick photo actually.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, I'll if you're nice, I'll text it to you. Yeah, I actually wanted to show you this other photo because I've always wanted to know the story behind this photo. So this shot is the very first GP that you did, 2017, at Brno, and I think you stunned everyone with that one. I mean, you've obviously got the skill in the rain. I remember when you went and won that race, which actually is this photo, when you won that race at New Jersey in the Moto America Supersport race as a wild card, but then you come to the Moto2 race and then you really kind of surprised quite a few people. And just tell us the story a little bit about how that weekend went about, because that was a bit of a milestone for you.
Yeah, that was cool. I was basically that was my year after I left America. I went to race the European Championship, with the AGR team, and basically, yeah, they came to me saying they wanted to have me do 5 wildcards with them, which was I think Brno, Austria, Silverstone, Misano, and Aragon. And yeah, so that race, I think for me getting there, I realized quite quickly that the level in Moto2 world level is just insane. It's not it's not so much just the outright speed, it's just how quickly they get up to speed.
Yeah.
You know, there's no first session to just, you know, get used to things. Their first session is he's, you know, half a second off the lap record. So so it was that was the learning curve there. And then it's funny, I always had really good things happen at that track. I really like it a lot. It's one of my favorites. And I even won the Red Bull Rookies Cup. My first year in the Red Bull Rookies Cup, I won there.
Actually,
in the rain as well.
As you say that, check this out, everybody. Look at that. Butter wouldn't melt in that mouth. And there's little Joe on the podium with the first place trophy above his head.
That's all the English chocolate I was eating living in England at the time, going straight to my face.
Yeah.
But it was weird, that track. So that race in the Rookies Cup, it was a restarted race that we only had 5 laps. And then when I went to 2017 in the European or in the Moto2 race, my wild card, it was like the same thing. It started dry and then they red flagged it. And then I think it was 10 laps, a restart. Right. So, and I was starting quite far back as well. So, I don't know, maybe it was because I did it in Rookies Cup. I could do it again in the Moto2 class, but basically, I had a great race, finished 10th in my first ever GP. So people were pretty surprised about that. I think no one really expected me to finish 10th, but I think there were some people who thought I could do well in the rain because we started that weekend. I think the first session or first and third session was wet and I was running up in the top 10 or something. So I don't know what it is about the rain. I've always had a good feel for where the limit is, I always just really, and also I think a lot of riders, I can just kind of prey on the fact that I know they're not comfortable. So I like the fact that, when conditions are tricky, I like that because other riders will have their attention on it and I can kind of take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Whereas I know in the dry, everyone's comfortable and going whatever they're going. So I think I always quite like the tricky conditions.
Was that down to your dirt track background?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even do that much dirt track, to be honest with you. I started doing dirt track when I was a little kid, and then I moved straight to kind of mini road racing pretty quickly. And I started doing dirt track again in like 2014, but that was when I was already back in America racing 600. So, I don't know. I think it's something else that I found in the rain. Maybe honestly, it's that confidence from the race in the Red Bull Rookies Cup when I won in 2011. Maybe that's what's bred the whole confidence in the rain kind of thing that's lasted this long. Yeah. So, it's weird.
You've gone through your Grand Prix career now. You started off in that Czech Republic race. That was a Kalex chassis, if I'm not mistaken, and then you went to this bike, which is an interesting bike, the NTS chassis. Tell us a little bit about that year, because that year was obviously your first full season within Grand Prix. Bit of a baptism by fire, because you obviously were in a new series, mainly new tracks for the most part, and a very, very new bike that only yourself and your teammate had. So tell us a little bit about that one. That must have been a bit of a tough year for you.
Yeah, it was tough, but also very, very important. I made a lot of good friends that year and learned all the tracks that I hadn't been to, which is important to know for future years. And I think the year overall was positive. I got in the points and it was a bit up and down, but we were on a development bike. It was the first year that bike had actually been in the World Championship. So there was a lot of unknowns. They'd really only been testing that bike with tires that were quite soft because they raced in the European Championship, which they really only give you soft tires to use. So, and I always feel that soft tires are a little bit of a band-aid for issues with a bike. I think the real issues of the setting and the way you change the geometry of the bike come when you're trying to adjust for harder tires. So, I think that year we learned a lot about that bike and when it gets the different temperatures and different tires and stuff. So We had some good races, some fun memories, and some really shit races too that don't want to look back on, but it was fun. I liked it. The guys from NTS are these. It's a Japanese company, and they're honestly the nicest people ever. I'm still friends with them and talk with them a lot. So, yeah, they're good people, and the Dutch team RW really. It gave me a headache that year, but now we're really good friends.
We have another question here from Bobby Backmarker, as he calls himself, and he says, how do you find the new 3-cylinder format compared to the old 4-cylinder format of the CBR motors?
I like it a lot, actually. I think at first it was something to get used to. I think now, obviously, we have auto blip too now, whereas I think the Moto2 bikes were a lot more simple. You know, they didn't have really any electronics. It was just when you go into the corner, you use the clutch to backshift, and it would have this clutch where you didn't have to flip the throttle, so you get these crazy slides. It was definitely a rider's bike. It eliminated all the extra electronic aids and things that maybe if you're not so savvy with that stuff, you maybe can't take full advantage of. But now I quite like it. I think the styles have changed for sure. I don't think people are backing it in as much as they used to. And the auto blip is quite nice. And also you have some different things with the torque management. And I think it's probably maybe just better preparation for MotoGP to move up there, and the engine's quite a lot more powerful too. So I like that aspect too. It's kind of nice. Yeah. Sometimes the CBR engine always felt a bit sluggish. So yeah.
How about, you've done a lot of travel now. Where are your favorite racetracks to go to and favorite countries to go to? Because you've seen more of the world than most people will ever see in the space of just a couple of years. Like, where are the places that you really love to go and check out?
One of my favorite places. I really love Portugal, actually. Like I was saying with that trip that I did, I really love that whole coastline and surfing there. It's really, really fun. Favorite racetracks, really, I think I've always said Brunel is a really fun track. Australia, I really like going to Australia. I actually have a lot of family that are from Australia. My dad's half Australian, so every time I go there, I catch up with my cousins that live there, and it's always a nice time to go there. And also Phillip Island, is such a cool place, and the track is insane. So there's nothing like going into turn one when it's windy and raining and dropping it underneath. So
it's a terrifying feeling. I've done it a couple of times, but not at the speed that you've done it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think even for me, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Can't imagine running a GP bike there. How fast that would feel.
Yeah. How has I guess, has there been any thoughts or maybe conversations or anything revolving around possibly getting into MotoGP? I mean, very early days, and you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, but it is definitely on people's lips now. Like, this is a possibility now that we could have an American in the World Championship.
I think it's obviously the goal. I've always wanted to be there ever since I was a kid. So you might be able to hear my dog howling outside. But no, obviously I want to be in MotoGP. That's where I want to be. So, but I think once the right opportunity comes, we'll be able to take it. And as far as this year, I think obviously I've thought about it, but I want to do really well in Moto2 before I go. So I really want to prove to myself that I've done this class for a long time, so I want to win races here, and I think that would be nice before I went to MotoGP.
Yeah, is there talk that possibly the American racing team would look at trying to get a berth within the MotoGP paddock, or they're going to stick to being a kind of a feeder class to get into the big time?
I'm not really sure about where their plans are at as far as what they're trying to do. I think that could be something that could be very cool for the sport and for America. So I guess we'll just wait and see. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what their plans are, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It seems like it's time now for an American to be able to step up, because I mean the last rider that we had was Nicky, but I mean Nicky was probably past his best in terms of machinery for sure by the time that he left MotoGP. I mean his last competitive bike was probably the Ducati, and Ben Spies was our last race winner. So hopefully we can get an American up back into MotoGP. But I mean, as you've proven this year, it's very much the team and the bike as well. Like you're on that KTM last year. Like, tell us a bit about that, because everyone struggled on that bike last year, from the factory guys down to the customer team guys.
Yeah, I think. Man, I don't know why you want to talk about last year. I don't want to talk about last year. No, it was a difficult deal for everyone, for all of the and anybody who was on the KTM. It was not easy for sure. So I think everybody who rode one struggled. I don't know, it's a plain way to put it. I hated it. So
what was the issue in your eyes? What was the issue with the chassis? Was it not steering? Was it chattering? What was the problem with it?
No, you just said it. That's it. The problem. I'm a rider that relies a lot of feel in the front, so I didn't have any at all. I just felt, I just couldn't figure out how to get the thing to go into the corner. So yeah, that to me was the main problem.
Yeah. All right. We'll forget about last year. Let's talk a little bit about this year.
Yeah.
When you are there any major people now? I mean, Moto2 is so competitive. I mean, I personally think it's probably the most competitive championship there is, because everyone's on they are on the same engine, and it's just down to how well you set your bike up. And who for you are the real danger men within that class, or is there no danger men? They're all danger men.
Oh man, they're pretty much all danger men. I think you can't really. You couldn't really pick. I mean, I guess there's riders like Luca Marini, Enea Bastiani, the guys who were running up front in Qatar for sure. I think will be there the whole year. Baldassarri always is quite strong. I think if he can continue on his pace throughout the whole year, like last year, he started really strong, but then dropped off quite a lot.
Yeah.
I think Augusto Fernandez will figure it out too. I think he'll be someone who will be there.
Yeah.
I think maybe just getting used to the new team has been a bit of a struggle for him, but I feel he'll be there. It's I don't know. Like you said, it's just such a competitive class, and there's so many riders that could be there.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the mental things you have to deal with. It's almost like when you race this class, you can't really think about anybody else. You're just almost racing against yourself.
Yeah.
In a way, because there's so many riders that are.
Oh, we've lost you again. Yep, there you go.
Lost you again.
Yep. Gotcha.
Oh, I just lost my AirPods. Just ran out of battery.
All right. Well, that's all right. You still there?
Yeah, all good.
Yep, we're good. No worries. So now that we've got no racing, what are you doing? How are you managing to stay sane?
Man, it's been tough for sure. I think been playing a lot of video games. I'm thinking about buying one of those steering wheel, like a simulator kind of thing. Gotta keep the mind sharp.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about doing that. I've been doing you're allowed here in LA. You can go out and do a ride or a run or a bicycle ride or something. So I've been able to do that at least, and that's nice to just get out in fresh air. And I have this private gym with the W they're just letting me go down there, and it's just me in there. So I'm able to use the gym there, which is nice. But yeah, other than that, I mean, the hardest part is the fridge, man. You got to stay away from the fridge.
No kidding.
Like when I got back, I think I put on like 6 pounds or something. I was like, just start eating. There's nothing else to do, right?
Yeah, your snacking becomes your enemy at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, mate, like I'll let you get back to it, but look, thank you so much for coming on, and you're the first ever Cycle News guest, and I'm stoked that you're on here, and I'm really stoked for that you're actually kicking so much ass over there, man. Like we're all behind you. So thanks again, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, mate. Well, like fingers crossed we get back there.
Yeah, for sure we will. We'll be there. I know it.
Good on you, man. Thanks again.
All right, man. See you later.
Cheers. All right, guys. So there you go. That was our quick chat with Joe Roberts. I hope you guys have liked this format. We are incredibly, are incredibly green with this kind of stuff. So we're going to get better at this, I promise you. We're also going to try and fix up a few audio things and that here and there. But I hope you've enjoyed this, and please get out there and share it. You know, give this guy some love. You know, this guy's the only American that we've got out there that's doing it on the world stage. So, yeah, get out there, give him some love, show him what you got. And yeah, we'll be back sometime soon. Won't be too long, promise you, with another Cycle News Live. So thanks again, guys, and look after yourselves. Stay safe out there. Cheers. See ya.